going on there, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's our weekly live stream where we talk about news, culture, what have you, and of course our movie review. With me, as ever, is the homeboy Rob.
It's nice not talking to a blank screen anymore.
Yes, for those of you not unaware, we did not have a stream last week because I went off on a little vacation with my dad, doing some fishing. Which I will get to in a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, you have an old man detail to tell us.
Yes, I do have a fish story for y'all. But that's a little bit later. Don't forget, tonight it will be the last of our movie reviews under the theme of Spooky September. And we will be reviewing a horror classic, Nosferatu, film from 1922, directed by
F.W. Murnau.
Yeah, there you go. And actually, this year is the 100th anniversary. You know, being that the movie came out in 1922. So.
Yeah, well, and it's actually funny. We're gonna catching a few of these anniversaries on movies that are coming up, because we have. I chose Nosferatu specifically because A, I love it, and two, it's 100th anniversary. We got the later in November, we have the 20th anniversary of Pool Hall Junkies, and The Thing's 40th anniversary in December. So a couple of movie anniversaries that we'll be celebrating.
Yeah, so you have that to look forward to, as well as topics for discussion of the day. Before we get into all that, we'll play a little catch up. And as I alluded to earlier, I did have a fish story for you guys, so I guess I'll open up with that and regale you with a fish story.
All right, Hemingway us to death. Hemingway us a tale.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe I oversold this, but yeah, me and my dad and uncle and cousin, we went on a little fishing trip, a 4-day fishing trip, out to Lake Skinner, near Temecula, California. Yeah, it was hot. We should have checked the weather. But yeah, it was pretty hot, but it's there was a breeze here and there, so it wasn't too unbearable. Yeah, we went specifically to go and catch carp. And for those of you who know, carp meat isn't the best for eating.
But is it edible though? Because I've heard it's not really edible.
I mean, you can eat it. But yeah, it doesn't taste the greatest. And to kind of counteract that, you need a lot of aromatics: onions, garlic, ginger, just anything to really offset the flavor.
So carp is the fish equivalent to grits.
I'm gonna let that slide, but no, I mean, well, because what is it? Carp are bottom feeders, so yeah, whatever they're eating isn't the best, so it definitely comes through in their meat.
Oh yeah, well, I definitely wouldn't like it because I'm not a huge catfish fan either, and they're also bottom feeders.
Right. Although, well, I mean, because most often than not, the default preparation for catfish would be to deep fry it. So so that I'm sure if you deep fried carp, it would be kind of it would definitely help the flavor in that. But I know because I know Chinese people, they eat carp, but again they throw so many aromatics into it that they almost like mask the flavor.
Now, when you fish, are you like exclusively doing like carp fishing, or is it just you kind of just go? It doesn't matter what you're fishing for.
Well, carp is when I went, carp was the primary target. Although my cousin, he did catch a bluegill, a pretty decent sized one. We actually ate it.
But I'm talking about like all your fishing trips. Like, are you like?
Oh no, I mean it just depends on where we're going. When we go to like specific lakes that we know are filled with carp, we're going there to catch carp because
right. Okay.
Carp is the fun is in the fight. So you kind of set up your your rod and reel for the fight. So you kind of loosen up the tension. So like the fish is able, because carps are very strong. And so like the fun is in the fight. So you kind of you reel it in a little bit, and it kind of swims away, and then you reel it in a little bit, and it swims away, and it kind of goes back and forth. So the first day, the first full day that we were able to go fishing, we got skunked, and we didn't catch anything. Even though we used up all of the bait, and we were out there for a good better part of the day, but we got skunked. And then day 2 rolls around, and just to backtrack a little bit, on the first day we went to a site that was further away from our camping site, not knowing that there was a fishing spot closer to where we camped. So when we figured that out, we went to the closer spot the second day, and initially, it was slow going. Again, my cousin, he caught a bluegill. For those of you who don't know what a bluegill is, it kind of looks like like a pumpkin seed, essentially, just a pumpkin seed. And it was pretty good when we ate it up that night. We were there for a pretty long time. We were there for like probably since like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and as the day went on, we were there again for until about 4 o'clock, and we kept pushing it because we're the type of fishermen who were like, we got to catch something, and so and luckily our campsite was close enough that we didn't really have to worry about getting back and making dinner too late. We towards the end of the day we moved over to a different spot, but still like within the range of where we were. And I throw out my line. It's kind of like, all right, this is the last one, and whatever happens. And we're just sitting there under the shade of a tree, and just talking, enjoying our each other's company, and all of a sudden, on my fishing pole, I left a little bell on it, and it starts going off, and you're like, and you're usually really careful about it, because sometimes the pole could be tripped up by a breeze, or maybe like something was nibbling at it, but it spits out your hook. But so I hear the bell, and all of a sudden it goes straight. The tip of the pole nosedives, and so that's when I know, like, fish on. And so
it's a fish, yeah.
Yeah. And so I run over to my fishing pole, and I gotta say, I'm really glad that I loosened up the tension, because spoiler alerts, it ends up being a really big fish. And so if I hadn't loosened up the tension in the spool, that fish would have like pulled my pull in, and I would have been out of pull. So I run over to the pole, I grab it, I immediately give it a jerk to make sure that the hook is set into the fish's mouth, and luckily it did. But and then I started tightening up the tension again, just enough to so it's still it could still run off, and and my pole wouldn't be dragged in, or I wouldn't be dragged in with it. So. But for some reason, I tightened it up to what I'm accustomed to feeling. But for some reason, it just kept going, and I kept tightening up the tension, and still the line ran. I was like, oh my god, this it must be a monster on here. And so I'm reeling, and I'm to the point where it's the reeling isn't helping in, because as I'm reeling, it just pulls out the line again. So I literally have to walk backwards away from the shore, from the lake, and then I'm maybe 30 feet away from the shoreline, and the fish is still pulling the line out. And so,
okay, so you're not on a boat. You're on
on
shore.
The shore. Yeah, on the shore.
Okay, because I usually when I would go fishing. Mm-hmm. We're out in the middle of the lake on a boat, because we did when I would fish with my family. Our main spot was towards June Lake. That we would go there, or there's a group of 5 lakes there. We would do Silver or June Lake, usually, and there's mainly trout there. But yeah, we would do boat fishing, so we're out in the middle of the lake.
Right.
But do you mainly just do offshore, on the shore fishing?
Yeah. I mean, because again, depending on species, you use different tactics. Yeah, if I was bass or trout fishing, then yeah, we'd probably be fishing off a boat. But again, because we were going after carp specifically, we just fish from off the shore.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and so I'm walking, and I walk back 30 feet away from the shore, and this thing is still running, and so I really tightened up the tension, and then I started reeling it in, and then a good maybe 5 minutes or so of fighting it with this thing. It's finally kind of tiring out, and I'm more and more able to bring it in, and we're kind of getting little glimpses of its body flickering in the sun as it's breaching the surface, and we still don't have an idea of how big it is, but we know it's strong. So again, yeah, after fighting it for maybe a little over 5 minutes, as we finally land it, and it's this huge sucker. And I think it's my personal best. One of the biggest carps I ever caught. And luckily, my cousin, he had a scale and a tape measure, and so we break that out, and we measure it out with the tape measure, and it ends up being 32 inches long, and it weighed 14 pounds.
Jesus Christ! Oh my God!
Yeah, so it was a monster.
Yeah, I saw all the measurements and the weight. I was like, "Fuck, that is a huge fish."
Yeah.
I know you were yeah, it's the biggest one I've ever caught. And are you gonna do some taxidermy and put that up on a wall somewhere?
No, we let it go. As long as I have evidence that I pulled it in, then that's I'm good with it. But although we did debate whether or not we were gonna eat that thing. It was so big, and it's we've never caught a carp that big. I've been carp fishing before, and they some they usually run between 12 to 16 feet. Not feet, inches. I'm sorry, inches.
Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the biggest carp I've ever seen too. That's fucking huge.
Yeah, seriously, that's why it's my personal best. I hold the record now.
Yeah,
at least within my family.
Yeah, like I mean, your picture, like you're grinning ear to ear. So it was good to see you catch something like that, and hey, now you got a story to tell the rest of your life, man.
Yeah, exactly. Although, yeah, like my dad's like really upset because I was the only one to like catch well, not the only one because my cousin caught that bluegill, but like my dad was specifically there to catch carp, and so he was like he was upset at me that I was the only one to catch a carp and the size of the carp. So he was like, all right, we have to schedule another camping trip because I can't let my son be the one to. I can't let my son be the one who has the record. So
fucking shithead.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I have another camping trip in the future coming up.
Yeah, but no, man, congratulations. That's the fun of it. A lot of times, yeah, when it comes to fishing, it's really not about, unless like it's your profession, it's not about catching the fish. It's about the the fun of it, the relaxation, being with nature. But when you do catch something, it's just, God, it's like that fight is so fun.
Yeah, seriously, and it's just like, yeah, when you like try to describe it to somebody, and like like I remember like I had like especially like women, like I had like a few female cousins. When we go, back when we were younger, when we were kids, we go fishing, and like they, especially when we go beach fishing, and like they would see that the pole would like kind of bend, but like it would fluctuate with the ebbing and flowing of the tide, and they would say like, oh, well, how do you know like when there's a fish on? It's like, oh, just because like one like the pole, the tip of the pole like bend down, like not just like kind of like flutter, but like like point down.
Oh yeah, you feel when it's something like where, okay, it's caught on something, or when it's like it's actually
right.
like
When there's a live thing at the end of the line.
Yeah, it moves and feels different. Like you can just, it's one of those experience things. You just know, okay, that's how it feels.
I mean, it's kind of like the predatory instincts of like of like sharks when like they when a fish is in distress, it's like fluttering, and like so the shark knows like, oh yeah, it's like easy pickings, like it's kind of like
exactly.
it's kind of like the same thing. It's like you pick up on the signal or the frequency is transmitted through the line into the pole, and you just know.
Plus, you'll see the line dance a lot too. Like where if it's just something that like, oh, like
right,
oh,
yeah, you get like little precursors too. Yeah, you get like sometimes at the tip of the pole, like it'll like kind of like flutter, but then like but you're like looking for like that bend,
Yeah.
like, when you know that.
But if it's just caught on something, it's like, okay, it's stuck on something. I don't know what it is, and the line
something on the bottom or structure. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't no boot. It was a fish.
Yeah. So.
But congratulations, man. I know that was you were super excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, especially since like the first day, like when everyone got skunked, it was just like, oh, jeez. Yeah, and this is this was actually the first time I was back to this lake in 30 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember me and my dad went there. My dad took me when I was like about 8 or 10, and so yeah, I'm gonna be 30. Yeah, I'm turning 38 this year. So
in a week, dude. Our birthday is in a week.
Oh yeah, that's right. For some reason I can't. I like it. Like I don't register that. It's just like I think I still it's still September. Like I can't reconcile like how late in September it is.
Yeah, kind of crazy, man.
Yeah.
I mean, 36.
It's a young pup compared to me.
I know, right? Well, it's like, oh, you make me feel young, Andy. That's all I have to say.
I know it's weird because like I'm like nowadays like I'm finding myself that like a lot of the times I'm the oldest one in the group, and it's just like, jeez,
I'm actually at that point too most of the time. Outside of like when I'm with like you and James and kind of like the rest of the jerks. I'm like, I'm kind of I'm the young one.
Yeah, we're right. It feels like we're more like peers, and there's not so much of that age difference.
But I don't think of you guys as older than me. Like, yeah, you are, but in a way, like I consider you like my equals. Like you're like my brother. So
right. Yeah, and I mean, especially, I mean, I specifically feel it because of Korean culture and how like there's that hierarchy or like caste where it's like you're the oldest one, so you're like you're the one in charge, you're the one who always has to take the lead and everything, and so but I mean, not that I feel like I do that all when we're together or hanging out, but
right. No, it doesn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, no, but yeah, just like now, like lately, I just finding myself like within like a group of people, and I'm just like looking like, I was like, am I the oldest one here? And I kind of put out a feeler, like I make a reference, a really old reference, and like if someone goes like, "What's that?" It's like, okay,
yeah, dude, that's me all the fucking. That is me all the time. It's well, I feel that like that in my own home. Like if I make
yeah, because like, wait, what's the difference between you and your wife? I forget.
She's 93, so like 6.5 years though, because she's
that's not so bad.
No, it's not so bad, but like she's also, you have to remember, she's not like from the United States, even though she grew up a lot. She most of her life, she's been here most of her life, but not like she's been around a lot of different places, so her pop culture knowledge is not there per se. Though she's catching up on some things. But yeah, there's times where I'm like, I'll make a reference just like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's weird. Like I have, when it comes to like stuff like that, the people that I know understand like my references are like you get it, because I know a lot more than most people like our age. But like it's more like people like my dad's age that know this stuff. I'm like, it just make a little sad, like where it's like, am I out of touch? No, it's
the children who are wrong.
I'm Principal Skinner, like at this point.
Yeah, and there's your Simpsons reference for the stream.
But my week was not quite as exciting. I was dealing with a wife who is recovering from having her wisdom teeth pulled out. So that's been
oral surgery.
Yeah, and you know how she is. It's like she's a raw nerve. It just everything.
Yeah, I mean, she's a raw nerve, like even when she's not like recovering from surgery.
Yeah. So I spent the week off. We if you listen to our episode with a cut above, I got made fun of for not having watched any of the Scream films. Well, I've rectified that now. I did over the past week. I did watch all the Scream films, and I have to say they're pretty damn solid. Yeah, they're really like. I mean, the first one's still like the best, but they're all really good. I was actually really surprised, and it's kind of like a good if you're trying to understand, film and like horror films specifically, like watch the Scream films. You'll learn a lot, and it's because it's in a way it's making fun of horror films,
right?
But
like, it's what is it? It's hanging a lantern on all of like the tropes
and yeah, and but it does such a great job of it, and it yet at the same time, it's doing something. It's doing it in an entertaining way, and it's like I couldn't stop watching them. There was like, damn, they're all really freaking good. So that was a lot of fun. That was pretty much my week. I'm trying to figure out, kind of maybe having a small get together for our birthday this coming weekend, but trying to finish up the details on that. But yeah, that's pretty much been my week. Just not as exciting as yours. I didn't catch a cool fish.
Okay. All right. Good catching up. All right. Let's get into the topics of the day. Why don't we get in? Why don't we get into what is it? The Martha Vineyard story.
Yeah. So a lot of some of the state governors that have to deal with a lot of the border crisis, a lot of these border towns who have been suffering because of the rampant illegal immigration. Well, some of these states are kind of fighting back. Like Ron DeSantis, Greg Abbott kind of joined in. I think there was one other state that was kind of doing this too. I don't remember, but essentially their plan was, okay, we are going to use. Ron DeSantis, I think, stated it the most clearly of what his goal was. Is okay, these places claim, all these places, these Democrat cities claim that they want to be sanctuary cities or states. Well, all right, then we're gonna let them deal with that. So as these people come into our country, we are going to take buses and planes, and we are going to ship them off to these places, whether it be Washington D.C., Martha's Vineyard, Cape Cod, whatever. And this is also something that is the news media and the Democrats and the left won't tell you this. They've been kind of doing the same thing where they've been taking these people from the border and trying to force them into a lot of these like conservative cities and towns and states that are not on the border. It's already been happening. So Ron DeSantis
there's that body cam footage from like private security or whatever. They're like saying like, yeah, I don't know what we're doing here. I don't know who's like, I'm just here. They just told me to be here, so I'm here. And like, they were running security like in the middle of the night, and that's how you know that that this isn't that isn't expressly kosher, because they're doing it. They're running planes in the middle of the night. And I'm not talking about like red eye flights or whatever. Like this is like there were
these are like black ops flights.
These are like these are like private, like almost like private jets, but like kind of bigger, so they held more people. There's like no identifying markers on them. They flew into like these like small local airports. In like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's it's
already been happening under the Biden administration, and so like all these like Republican governors, most prominently Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, what they've been doing is like all right, bet, like put your money where your mouth is. Here you go. And it's like. Yeah, like the Martha's Vineyard one, like they didn't even have them for a full 24 hours, and they already bust them off to some like army base.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Like when it comes to this, now I am more on the Kari Lake side of this. Who she says like, no, when I become governor of the state of Arizona. We're not going to do this. We're going to ship them right back to where they came from. We're not going to let them just come in here and have, some court case, 10 years from now that they never show up to. No, we're going to ship them right back to where they go, because the federal government's not doing anything. So we're going to do it. And I agree. That's the way it should be handled. If a lot of these states had balls, that's exactly what they would do. And so right. I agree with that.
I agree as well. And what is it? People are giving DeSantis shit about like, oh, you're using, how dare you misappropriately use like taxpayer money or whatever. It's like, but he's not. They passed the law like, and he's using discretionary funds. So this is the things that like the Floridian people already agreed on, like they could use the money for.
Yeah, but I also don't. I also agree with what these guys are doing, because we already know that these cities and the Democrats and the media, they're all full of shit. They say one thing, but they actually don't really care. They just it's not happening to us, so who gives a shit?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well then you're saying these things, and I think people like us, we know that they're full of crap. And what I think this is doing, what is helping here, is that it is showing people that are people who still watch like mainstream media, who still kind of no, they wouldn't lie about stuff like that.
Right.
No,
They still think that they're getting objective news.
But it's those people who are starting to see, like, oh wait, they're full of crap.
Mm-hmm.
And though it's those kind of like the what they call the people in the middle, which is actually the majority of the public. They're seeing that it's like, oh wow, these people are full of shit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good thing. That
yeah, absolutely, dude. Like, I know that our content, like, people on the far left, they're not watching it, right? But like, a normie who comes upon our content, that's the person I want to reach.
Exactly. And I think the normies are seeing that, hey, like these people who are saying that they're sanctuary cities or sanctuary states, or that, like, we need to be kind to the people that are coming across the border, and it's not about, like, they're here because they're asylum seekers or whatever.
Right.
And
they're dreamers.
And then you see how they get treated. And I'm not saying that, like, that all the people that are coming across are horrible people. They're not. There's a strong element that are, but the people that aren't, they are also having they're being trafficked. A lot of them are. They are being essentially enslaved by these coyotes, and possibly their government.
Cartels.
Yeah, the cartels, their governments too. Like, depending on where they're coming from.
Yeah, what was it? And like Honduras, like they emptied out a prison basically, and like gave them like all bus tickets to the border.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I said, there are elements. There are criminal elements that are coming across. There are people that are being
they're terroristic. They're terroristic elements coming across.
Yeah, there are, and people who aren't even from, like, Central and South America. Right, they're like from Turkey and Afghanistan and all these places. Like, why are those people here? That doesn't make any sense. Then you also have the people that are being trafficked, that they're being sold. They're sex slaves or they're child slaves that are being sexually assaulted all along this route to the American border. And no one's like that. See, that's the thing where it's like, I care about, because of these, the way that our government is handling this stuff. It emboldens this criminal element that is taking advantage of people, and kidnapping kids, raping women, all this stuff that's going on.
I forget what the exact statistic is. What was it? Like, a woman who makes that trek, like, they are on average like raped like 3 times.
Yeah,
that's average.
That's where I'm just like, it's horrible. I don't want that happening. It's, and then they get over here, and then they're trafficked around the country as sex slaves to to pay this quote unquote debt that they have to these.
Like the cartel guy or the coyotes, like, says like, oh yeah, we could get your You know, especially like they go to like they go to parents like, oh, don't you want your kid to have a good life? Oh, well, just give us like $500. And it's like, and then when they get here, it's like, oh, actually, what, the journey was a little bit more expensive than we thought. You actually owe us $5,000. But since your parents already paid off that $500 initially, all you have to do is make up the 4,500.
Yeah, or in some cases they hold parts of their family like ransom, and that's why they're kind of stuck, because if they don't do it, their child or their husband or their wife dies.
Right. Yeah, if they don't engage in like prostitution, or if they don't become a drug mule or whatever, then yeah, like the cartels will kill their families, and so like
Yeah.
they're trapped, and so
And
and these
that's
people think and
that's
they,
why
these people think that these people think that that these people are coming over the border is like, oh, like it's like, oh yeah, they had a hard journey, but it's like they can't even begin to comprehend just the utter nightmare that they went through.
Yeah, so like I said, in some ways, like there are people that are kind of going on this journey that I do feel for, like yeah, they're, and everyone was up in arms when Trump says like, oh yeah, they're not sending their best. Yeah, they aren't. And
I know, it's just
it's
like how like yeah, it's like
if it isn't just like strictly like gang members or like cartel members that are coming kind of coming into this country illegally, it's people who are being are essentially slaves that are being used, whether it be through prostitution or as drug mules, and at like essentially a gunpoint. So, but it's stuff like this that I think that guys like Abbott and DeSantis are doing, which is maybe like waking people up to the fact that's like, yeah, these people that are claiming like, oh, we need to be a sanctuary. It's like, well, clearly these people don't want that sanctuary at their homes.
exactly, yeah.
They've
They're NIMBYists.
And you listen to the Washington D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. You have the Martha's Vineyard mayor. It's like, oh, we can't handle that here. This is
And
crazy.
again, yeah, it's like and that was over 50 people, 50. The border is being slammed with like something like 5 million people.
Yeah, it's and the other
5 million every month or something.
That the Democrats and the media, like the great blob of that talks about this stuff. They're like, oh, how Ron DeSantis, you're just a human trafficker. It's like, no, it's like,
we're like, okay, all right, now do Biden. What's he been doing?
Exactly. It's
if you categorize what Ron DeSantis did as trafficking, and it's exactly the same thing that Joe Biden's been doing
in secret.
In secret. Yeah, DeSantis just did it up front. Biden's been doing it behind your back like for the last like 2 years.
And it's like we are already at our capacity has exploded. It's like why don't we give these people who say that they want to be a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state, let's give them like a little bit of the taste of like what these border towns deal with on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't handle it and they're freaking out. Fuck,
exactly,
what are we gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, and like yeah, Mayor Beetlejuice, like she was calling out DeSantis too, but then like as soon as like they started coming to her door, she was like, oh no, there's no way we could take in this many people. We just don't have the resources. It's like, all right, now okay, now do like apply that to a small border town.
Exactly. That's where like I think that I've started to see some people where they're seeing this stuff. It's like, oh shit, like these people, they're thinking more about like the actual problem of this, that unfettered illegal immigration is maybe not a good thing, and that maybe, especially because a lot of the crime, like our prisons, a lot of the people that are in our prisons are people that are not they're not like legal immigrants, they're illegal immigrants that shouldn't even been in this country to begin with.
Yeah, and
It's a very, can we send those people back to their countries? Can we get rid of those? It would fix the prison problem, the supposedly overcrowded prisons. Fix that problem right away.
The ones that we had to empty out because of the sweet and sour sniffles.
Yeah. So I mean, there's that. Can we at least do that? I mean, it seems like they've already committed crimes here, like, and they're not here legally. Let's send them back to their country.
I mean, just dint of them being here is a crime. It doesn't matter if like they don't have a record in their country. In our country, they have a record. Entering our country illegally. That alone should be enough to give grounds to send them back.
This is not like Vito Corleone coming over to like the United States, like that type of immigration. This is something on a completely different level that should not be happening.
Right. Yeah, and it's like, and what is it? And there's like no way that we could assimilate like that many people into the country. There's no way that they're gonna start adopting American values and start and exclusively speak English. I mean, shoot, there are enclaves here in Los Angeles County where like you go into them, you're basically in Mexico. You're basically in El Salvador. You're basically in Guatemala. You're basically in Latin America. Because all the signs are in Spanish. All everyone around you speaking Spanish. You might as well be in that country.
Yeah.
And you think that all we have to do is just give them like a packet of cash and they're gonna be singing the praises of or the virtues of Levi's jeans and Coca-Cola.
Remember, vote Democrat.
Oh yeah, don't forget, vote Democrat. But again, this isn't something new. I mean, we discussed it about a few weeks back, talking about the Democrats during the Civil War and how the 3/5 compromise was just another way to get to stack the deck again for the Democrats. And similarly, this is all it is they're trying to. It's the same thing because they're just trying to get more votes because they know that the Latinos or the Hispanic people who immigrated here legally and went through the process and they're starting to get some money. They're starting to see it. It's like I voted for these Democrats, but they keep taking all my money, and like so maybe it's time that I change the way I vote.
Yeah, I think. Well, like I said, we're gonna find that out in November. It's gonna there's gonna be a lot of pain, I think.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be a lot of chicken with their head cut off kind of going around with all sorts of news pundits just losing their shit and it's like, oh no, it's the rise of fascism, it's the rise of Nazism. It's the sky is falling.
But yeah, I just find it an interesting story, and like ideally I would just like let kind of stick with what Trump was trying to do is like, okay, they're making asylum claims, they can do it like the they're supposed to do it in the next safest country to their borders. If that happens to be Mexico, they can make their asylum claim there.
Right, and
or
and what is it?
Brazil,
Initially, the Mexican president was like, "Yeah, we'll take you guys." Like he already made the offers. Like, hey, if you want to stay in Mexico, and not make that fucking ridiculous, like 2,000 mile trek up to America, we got you, and again, if not playing devil's advocate, but working under the assumption that these people are earnest and that they are, political, seeking political assignment or hell, even economic asylum, we'll take them at their word. It's like they really are, persecuted in their country and they're looking for asylum.
Well, hell, even like in the baseball world, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Cuban players in baseball. Mm-hmm. There have been for at least 30 years.
Right.
And a lot of these Cuban players, obviously they've been under a communist hellhole dictatorship, but they because they are baseball players, they travel around the world. They just kind of fucking jump ship and they make their asylum claims, whether it be they will go to Mexico or the Dominican Republic or Canada, depending on like where they're playing at, and they'll make their claim for asylum, and most of them get it because like a lot of times like now in the case of the baseball players, they're trying to get to the MLB, and so obviously they're getting a work visa or whatever, but they're not making citizenship claims like, oh, I'm gonna be an American, whatever. They're making their asylum claims in the next safe country,
right,
wherever it may be, wherever they like.
Right, that's escape. The rule. Like if, like, let's say this was Nazi Germany, and the Jews were trying to flee, they would they wouldn't like try and get a steamship to go all the way to America to claim asylum. They would go to the next safest country, which what I guess would be
well, in a lot
of Belgium or France.
So in this case, it's a little bit different because because of the war, going to places like, okay, I'm going to go to France or I'm going to go wherever. Yeah. That actually technically wasn't a good idea because Germany was making their expansion, towards the oceans. So a lot of the German Jews, or that were in like kind of the Nazi realm, they were fleeing to two places. America was a safe place, the first safe place, as well as Russia, of all places. And there were people that fled over to the Soviet Union, which also, in the long run, ended up being a bad spot for them because Stalin hated the Jews too. But initially, it wasn't so bad for them there. But but kind of the same thing. They were going to the first country that was safe for them to go to. And yeah, it just kind of.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, I meant more of like, yes, to your point, but I was like talking about like kind of like early on stage war, like when things were still kind of simmering, and like some Jews were able to like read the writing on the wall, and so like they were able to get out early. But yes, you're right. But like and especially like why come to a country where it's like people don't speak your language? You go like, let's say you're Salvadorian, and like Mexico's right there. And they already speak Spanish, so for the most part, yeah. But it'd be more easily compatible.
Right. It's that, and see that's what the other thing people don't realize too is like, now are some of them when Biden took over and we had like those the series of like just the waves of like this giant caravan of people. And good reporters were going. It's like, hey, like what are your reasons for coming up here? It's like, well, I'm just looking for, our country sucks, and we're looking for, better economic
opportunities.
Opportunities. Oh, okay, all right, fine. That's a fair assessment. It's like, but what made you decide to do that? It's like, was it because of the stuff that the president was saying? It's like basically,
right? Yeah, yeah.
That is the reason why, is because you have the leader of our country incentivizing people to come from Bolivia and Venezuela and wherever from Central and South America to come over to the United States. And don't tell me that that people are not funding this,
Oh,
where,
no, yeah.
because you have to grease the palms of all these countries' borders. You can't
like
just
people like coming from people coming from like Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua,
Argentina.
You think that that Mexico is letting like them traverse their like southern border that easily?
Hell no.
Hell no. People are being paid off.
Not without money. Not without money.
People are border guards on the southern border of Mexico. They're being paid off.
No, but even like all the countries that they're traversing through, they're going. It's not just like one country they're going through. They're going through like 5 or 6.
I know, but I'm just but like I'm just talking about the closest one. But people like coming from like Peru or Argentina or Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil. All the Latin American countries. And then not to mention all the island countries like Haiti or Cuba or Dominican Republic, and then going beyond that, you have people again, coming from the Middle East. You have Afghans, you have Palestinians, you have on and on and on, and even they're even finding Chinese nationals.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and even after like the Afghanistan debacle from like last year, or earlier in the year, where you just had these like guys that were like, oh yeah, I was helping out with the Americans, and it's like there's no checks, there's no trying to figure out like who are the ones that were working with us or not, and it's just like, yeah, it's okay, they're Afghanistan, they're Afghani. Just come on over, it's fine. It's like, yeah, but a lot of these guys were like child molesters and terrorists that were coming over. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, just no.
Yeah, I mean, people may not be wanting to hear this just yet, but in a weird way, it's good that the Taliban kind of took power again, because they were originally the ones to like the head pedophiles and outlaw opium. The poppy thing.
Yeah, it's like it's sad to say. It was like, you know what? I agree.
I know. It's like you're against sodomy. You're against pedophilia. I'm against pedophilia. You're anti-drugs. I'm anti-drugs.
Yeah, that's it's weird. I'm like, what universe are we fucking living in?
We're now like creating allyship with the Taliban.
And it's like, it's like I don't want to ally myself with those people, but it's like I at least agree with some of their morality.
Yeah, exactly. I know, it's funny. I know people don't want to hear this, but it's like yeah. As soon like, because when America was still there, you had the Black Lives Matter flag, you had the freaking gay rainbow flag, and they had they had mural. I don't know why, but they had murals of George Floyd in Afghanistan. But then as soon as the Taliban came and took over, the gay flag was gone. The false idol of George Floyd was gone. The false teaching of Black Lives Matter was gone.
Thank God.
and those are things that I oppose as well. So I'm not writing the Taliban a blank check, but in these specific areas, I can give them a thumbs up, if I had thumbs.
Yeah, and you had our government. It was like, well, we're gonna treat them as like as a real nation, and but it's like we're hoping that they're gonna have like pro gay and women's rights, and it's like they're like, haha, oh yeah,
Yeah. What is it that HBO like news crew or whatever like. That reporter asked that one Taliban fighter, like, "Oh, like, do you respect like women's, right to vote and stuff?" And he just like laughed in her face.
I was like,
"Oh my god, freaking base Taliban."
It's a sad world where I have more in common with somebody from the Taliban than our own fucking country.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I mean, again, like I think more and more I'm getting to the point where like I'm just like I'm like neither side. I'm not team red. I'm not team blue. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I'm neither of these labels because neither of them like fully like are able to encapsulate me. The only label that I do adhere to is Christian.
Yeah.
And that's like it's and that's more and more I'm thinking that like I mean even just recently with the election of the conservative chick in Italy, how she was like saying like they won't let you identify as a Christian or a woman or a mother. They just want you to be a number. They just want you to be they want you to be they don't want you to identify with anything except for what they tell you to.
Yeah, and as soon as she got elected, it's like, oh, she's a fascist. She's horrible.
I know, right? Soon as like I mean, because understandably, in European politics, the right, it is associated with like fascism and Nazism and things like that, because it was like more on it was for Europeans, that stuff is more on the right. But it's just like the immediacy of or the quickness with which they immediately go to the imagery of fascism, Mussolini, or Nazism, or whatever.
And so many people don't really understand. Like, so when they think of fascism, they think of like three figures. Obviously Mussolini was the big dude, obviously in fat. And I'm not saying I'm not for fascism. But like it's just this.
Although it's funny because Italian people have a softer view of Mussolini, like nowadays, because they're like, or even older generations, they're like, he made the trains run on time.
When of the Axis powers, Mussolini was maybe like the least bad.
Yeah. Out of all the bad, he was the least bad.
And to be honest, like I would say that the Japanese were way fucking worse than all of them. They were really awful.
I mean, yeah, especially like with the things that I'm finding out about, the whole Nazi stuff. Like, I mean, where again, like, where is the piece of paper? Where is the order signed by Hitler saying to exterminate the Jews? Is specifically in a culture that is so regimented and litigious. Like, there's no paperwork on that, and they just chalk it up to, oh, it's like the will of the Führer.
I would say, like, now, did he like the Jews? No, I don't think so. I mean, it's
although I think he might have been a secret J, and he was like one of those self-loathing Jews.
Yeah, I mean, you like your George Soros type.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly believe that, but he's kind of like the boogeyman that especially that the Democrats and the left like to prop up.
Mm-hmm.
But no one talks about the way that the Imperial Japanese were.
Oh no,
and
they're
they
fucking monsters.
fucking were. The level of human experimentation that they were doing, the level of just like rape and murder that they were committing was on a whole different level.
Yeah, like some of the tactics that they would attribute like Nazis to, like they were doing too, like taking babies and like bashing the taking by their leg and just like bashing them on trees and stuff to kill them.
Yeah.
I know there are like stories of like Nazis, or German soldiers doing that, but that was like standard practice for the Japanese army.
Yeah, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, where had it been flipped, like where we had dropped nuclear bombs on Germany instead of Japan, it would have been Hirohito who would have been like he's the new Hirohito. It's like he would that would have been the boogeyman.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm convinced that's how that would go.
Wait, was it Hirohito? Who's the emperor?
I think he was the emperor at the time. Let me double check on that.
Yeah, I thought it was Tojo.
Maybe it was. No, it was Hirohito. Because he was the emperor from 1926 until his death in 1989. And because of his surrender, he was allowed to continue as the leader of Japan.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Okay, Tojo. Okay, it says was general. Oh yeah, in the Japanese army. Okay, he was an emperor.
Yeah. No,
yeah,
but had it been had that been reversed, I think we would look upon Germany with sympathy, and Japan would be like, "Oh, he's the next Hirohito. He's the next." We would look at it very differently. I think you're so right on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, again, I have to look into it, but I don't know how extensively, Japanese war crimes were, being, documented. I mean, we at least know, but we at least know, kind of like stories like, like Bridge on the River Kwai, I think was based on something.
No, that was based off of a true story, and the events of that, because was it the actual like tale of what happened, because I think that English commander that Alec Guinness plays actually did live, unlike in the movie, he actually did live through that, and he defended the leader of that Japanese POW camp. He defended him and kept him, I think, from like being executed. So there was like that element to it, but like, yeah, we don't really hear of the prosecution of like the war crimes, like what we would do with like the judgment at Nuremberg, the Nuremberg trials,
Exactly.
Which are much more talked about, at least. I don't know if there's as much documentation on the Japanese ones, or if they were as long lasting as the Nuremberg trials were. That would actually, I wonder if there's any books on that, because I would be fascinated to read about the Japanese prosecutions, because there had to have been some.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, because when I looked up Tojo, it said that he was executed for war crimes.
Yeah, like that. I imagine that like a lot of the
I'm sure like a lot of the heads were were tried and were convicted or executed or sentenced to death. So I would want to do more research on that too.
like I said, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, oh, a lot of the World War II stuff, like there's a lot that has not been talked about.
No.
That should be talked about more. We don't talk a lot about Italy. We don't talk a lot about the like Spain and Portugal, who are like, kind of helping the Germans, and we're allied with them in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. We definitely don't talk a lot about like some of the stuff that Japan was doing leading up to World War II. Like how, because what people forget is that they were actually allies in World War I. They had helped the United States, and they were part of the Allied powers. But because of the Treaty of Versailles and like a lot of like they were wanting a seat at the table.
Yeah, they were looking for parity with all the other nations.
Yeah, they wanted to be part of those nations, and they were not allowed to be, which kind of, I think, pissed them off. And that's, I mean, they had already kind of like been, they were an imperialistic country. Maybe that's why they weren't allowed. I don't know. And they just kind of they were making their moves in China,
or maybe they just like they weren't as. I think maybe after World War I, they weren't as big of a military power.
True, that may have been the case.
So that's like, but when they got slighted, that's when they ramped up and upped their military capacity.
Yeah, and so I don't know if like what kind of turned them that direction. Were they always kind of that direction? And this kind of goes back to what we've talked about in the past with like 1848 was such a huge year in just world politics, where like a lot of stuff shifted throughout Europe, and in a lot of ways like that from that time the rest of the world started to change, where Japan changed because they went from like the what was it, the kind of like feudalism and kind of like the traditions, the Tokugawa shogunate, over to this new
more Western
regime, to more of the Western style, the
parliamentary system.
Yeah, like it was. I forgot who the Meiji era. It was from Tokugawa shogunate to the Meiji era, and there was a lot of civil war that was caused from that.
Yeah, that conflict was the inspiration for that Tom Cruise movie, Last Samurai.
The Last Samurai, yeah, that's exactly. That was one of the, and where the U.S. was actually helping them with tactics and helping them to learn how to fight in the Western way. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and that's
although they did take liberties, because like
Oh yeah, it's kind of it is the Braveheart of
it's the Braveheart Dances with Wolves glory, because it was actually that movie, Last Samurai, was directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Was it?
Yeah. No. Ed Zwick. Sorry.
Okay, I was gonna say like
who also did Glory.
I was gonna say, like, if Robert Zemeckis did that, God,
I'm sorry. Yeah, for some reason, yeah, I spaced on the name, but yeah, it was Ed Zwick who also did Glory, and if you want that, and that's why that one scene, that's why that one scene in Last Samurai looks very much like the scene in Glory.
Yeah,
with the rifle.
Oh shit, dude! I did not think about that, but it looked so similar.
Yeah.
But I'm actually really fascinated by that time period in Japan. Like, what was it that caused them to move to make that switch? Was it always in them, or was it something happened within world politics that caused them like, well, fuck all of these countries, we're just going to do our own thing, and they went in that direction?
Maybe. Well, again, because as you said, Japan. I think the mentality of the Japanese was very imperialistic. So they're constant they constantly looked ways to expand their territory and influence. And so, I think it's just, the change that happened was just the kind of a natural, was a natural outgrowth of that, culture of, imperialism. And so, and they saw that a lot of the countries who adopted, kind of like industry, you know, uh, they saw the fastest growth. And so I think that maybe they adopted it because they saw like all these other nations who were industrializing and how fast that they were growing and expanding as nations.
Yeah. Man, it's like I said, I think it would be a really fascinating look into that history. I'm gonna see if I can find some books on that time period. Talking about Japan in more specifics, because I would be really curious to find out. Because there's definitely a lot of like media and movies that kind of talk about that somewhat. With you have like I mean, also it's very fictionalized, I would assume, but like Rurouni Kenshin deals with that, like the anime deals with that time period. You have movies like The Last Samurai, The Human Condition definitely deals with that. But we also don't talk about, like, a lot of people don't know about the Russo-Japanese wars, the wars between like Japan and China, and there's a lot of these conflicts that were happening in that region that we just don't know much about. At least in this country, I'm sure in China and Japan and like stuff like that, there's more knowledge to that. But I'd be really fascinated to learn more about them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's all. I mean, we kind of went a little bit of a different direction based off of what we were talking about. But
yeah,
I'm in agreement with what these governors are doing.
Well,
exposing the hypocrisy
for
the public, to see, through that, like, what, these people are full of shit. They don't actually give a damn. They're not actual sanctuaries. They don't care about these people like they say they do. And I think that speaks volumes, and they're starting to see the truth.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in a vacuum, I wouldn't agree because all they're doing is helping to get these people into the interior. But yes, I do think that they are doing something important, which is revealing the hypocrisy and ultimately what these what people who advocate for open borders or sanctuary cities, what those policies actually look like.
I think what it might do is, as more people are starting to see like the reality of the situation, they're like, you know what? I think Trump was right on this. That, yeah, why can't they just go to the next safe country to make their asylum claim, to make their citizenship claim, whatever, or to try to do it the right way.
Right. Or at the very least, they could say like, why can't they just wait in Mexico? Which was at the very least, because I know it's gonna only a truly self-aware person will ever get to that place of like, yeah, why can't they just get a claim of ask for asylum in the next safest country? But I think a little bit lower hanging fruit is the stay in Mexico policy.
Well, that was an executive order. I would like that to be codified. As actually, our legislature actually does something and makes that an actual law. Like, we're not going to allow just people to come into this country, like expecting them to come to a court case 10 years later that they're never going to show up to.
Right.
But actually, it's like, no, we're gonna have them make their claims in a country, the next safest country for them to make their claims to, and just stop the nonsense. Like, it's having a border is not a bad thing. Every other country has a border. we've been talking about trying to protect the Ukrainian border, for fuck's sake, for 2 years now.
Right. Yeah, and I mean.
So why shouldn't we protect our own border?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way for people to wrap their heads around border, it's like why do you have a front door? It's like, what are you, a racist? Why don't you just leave your front door open all the time?
And at the very least, if you think, oh, all this stuff is like mean or unchristian like, well, let me tell you something else. A lot of the people that are coming over have been kidnapped, trafficked, raped. A lot of people have died on that journey because of whatever horrible things have been inflicted upon them. And maybe if we had not incentivized, someone to make that risk, to take that journey, and that, it's like those people would be alive, or it would have lessened some of the suffering that these people have gone through.
Or these people wouldn't be living in abject horror.
Exactly. And we talk about like these countries that are, oh, they're so horrible, they can't live there. It's like, well, you know why like a lot of these countries suck is because people have been leaving them in droves. It's like they don't have, it's like their countries are poor, and they're well, in normal cases, places like Venezuela and like that are kind of going really bad. That's one thing, because that's just a horrible dictatorship taking over, stealing a country.
Mm-hmm.
But in these other cases, like, oh, the country's so poor, and it's hard to make money and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, you know why? It's because all the smart people, all the people that make that country run, that could make it a better place, have left. And it's like, maybe like if had these people have stayed, they could have made their country a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that
exactly.
I don't want people from these countries that buy into the American system and all that stuff. Like I would love for all like the best and brightest people to come to our country and make it what this country is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like I would prefer like where all the countries are successful and that are doing well. Let the best and the brightest of those countries stay where they're at, make their country a good place to be, and so that way the whole world is a better place. That's really that. If anything, that should be the goal of the Christian. Like, don't you want the whole world to be like a good place to be, where you can go to like England, or you can go to China, or you can go to Venezuela or Afghanistan, and it's not like a hellhole.
Right, exactly. Like, don't you want every place to have paved roads?
Where people get treated with like respect and dignity.
Yeah. Or like the rule of law is upheld.
Yeah.
It's I know it sounds like so. I think people in this country they kind of take for granted all of the prosperity. It's just like they don't understand. Like I still remember this. I forget who. Someone from another country was telling me how Americans are better people than people from his country, is because like they follow traffic laws.
Yeah.
Wait, it was Brazil, because if you've ever ridden in a taxi or ridden in a car in Brazil, it's a free for all. Dude, there's they have the painted lines and stuff, but there are people who like use the very far shoulder as a lane, and they're constantly weaving through traffic, and not using their signal, not stopping at traffic signs or lights, and it's just like and it's like, yeah, but in America, everyone follows the rules, and that's what makes them better than people in Brazil.
Yeah.
Because even like the smallest things, like we agree, like, okay, we will follow these rules.
It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, are there cool things in other countries? Sure. But would I want to live there? Fuck no. I wouldn't want to live in Brazil. I wouldn't want to live in England or France or, China. I wouldn't want to live in those places. But are there cool things there? Sure. Cool. It's I would like to visit in some of these places,
yeah,
but
I like to experience those things, but I wouldn't want to live in
hell no.
Yeah, keep your spotted dick. You limey bastards.
That is one thing I am not looking forward to. I think English cuisine is horrible. I'm sorry. I know.
Although, I mean, yeah, but it's funny because I do want to try an English breakfast. And I'll admit, I'm not a fan of beans. But I'm curious. I'm just curious.
That is probably their most appetizing looking thing that they have is the British
Exactly,
breakfast.
that's what I'm saying.
Outside of that, I'm just like, nope, I'm not for it.
Exactly.
But why don't we get into our next topic?
All right. Yeah. All right. These are all your topics. So.
Well, so this next topic is recently there's been a lot of articles put out about how I don't know if these were like scientific articles or whatever, but like essentially like where there has been research done where it turns out that a lot of the big pharma and the psychiatric industry essentially is saying is like, yeah, all those drugs that we prescribe for mental illness and all this stuff, it's actually doesn't work and it's actually really bad for you. And whoopsie. And it kind of been, people just, shellacked Tom Cruise for his take on this stuff back in like 2004 or 5, but he was right. Now, is he a crazy person? Sure. I mean, like, I don't believe in Scientology, and obviously, like, that is one thing a lot of Scientologists are against.
Yeah, but I do hear that he's a genuinely nice guy.
What's that?
Yeah, I do hear stories of him like being a genuinely nice guy. Believes in crazy shit, but is like a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah, but he talked about how it's like, yeah, you don't understand like what these people are putting in their bodies, like and like what the medicines are, and like all the theory behind like a lot of the psychiatric theory and like where this stuff comes from, and he was right all along. But yeah, no, I find this actually what I'm gonna bring up is like because we've taught a lot of the brain chemistry stuff. Oh, I have I'm depressed or whatever, so I need to take these antidepressants, and it makes me better. And it would have been better for them to just take a placebo at that point, because it's like, well, I know it doesn't actually do anything, but it makes me feel better. But you're putting these harmful drugs into your body. And we've also kind of like seen this like with like a lot of these mass shooters. I guarantee that all of them, the majority of them are on these drugs. Hold on a second. I'll be right back. I use the bathroom, but
absolutely, yeah. I mean, like the Sandman kid. No, not the Sandman kid. The Parkland shooter guy. Yeah, like he was the kid who was on. I believe it was antidepressants. Maybe I'm getting confused. But Nick Cruz. There it is. Funny enough, spell Nicholas? Nicholas. Yeah, there we go. Nicholas Crew, that's right. Okay, jeez. Yeah, I do believe he was. I do believe he was on drugs, but I mean, if you look at his like, recovering addict, his brain was poisoned by his mother's addiction. Yeah, but I mean, not to go off just what is it? A picture, but you know, when you see his booking photo, it's just like he looks vacant. Whoops. He looks completely evacuated. You know, the lights are on, but no one's upstairs. I mean, there's been so many. What is it? The Sandy Hook shooter. I think he was also someone who was on medications. The Batman shooter. Um, I believe he was on some sort of pharmacological cocktail. So yeah, I don't know why people are like surprised. I mean, yeah, maybe Tom Cruise was being like a little aggressive or being a little bit of a dick, in his presentation, but he was telling the truth. He was saying like, how can we be describing these things to people that we don't know what like the full effect will be. And so, and then and now articles and research papers are coming out. It's like, oh yeah, actually, you know what? Like, it's not really doing anything, and it's and it's just making people crazier. And yeah. Oh yeah. While I was gone, like I referenced the Parkland shooter, and I'm not sure like if he was on anything, but if you look at his booking photo, and I mean, it's not.
They all look the same.
Yeah, and like they all like there's nothing there behind the eyes. Like they look evacuated, and it's like, and like the Batman shooter, in Aurora, Colorado. Yeah, like he like when you look at when you see like the footage of when he's like in court, it's like, yeah, like same thing, like nothing behind the eyes.
Like I said, they all look the same. They're all whether it be like Ritalin or antidepressant, some sort of antidepressant or weird stimulant that it's like. And I think honestly, I would not be surprised if it was by design, because it's a lot of these kids or guys that do this stuff. They've had the cops called on them. It's like, hey, this guy is going to do something. I don't know what, but
right. I mean, yeah, specifically the Parkland kid. Yeah, like he was. I was just remembering this meme. It's a Simpsons reference, but it's like, it's the one where Bart like gets famous for the line. It's like, I didn't do it. But it's like,
right.
It's like the FBI is Bart, and like everyone's like looking at him, and it's like, say the line, and it's just like he was on our radar, and it's like, yay!
Yeah. Dude, it really is. These guys are, yeah, we investigated him, but we didn't see anything. It's like, please, come on. It's not like you were called once and you didn't see anything. Like, you were called several times. And it's like, it's the same. Like, you could Uvalde and Parkland and all these places. It's the same fucking story. And the guys that are committing this, They all have the same damn look. I guarantee, it's like they don't have any fathers in the house. They don't have, they're on these medications. It is a recipe for disaster. And that's exactly what happens. And I think that's exactly is the government or the law enforcement, are they trying to make this happen? No, I don't think this is by design. It's just like this is something where it's like them not doing anything causes a problem. And it's not just them, but it is these ghouls of doctors that are like, oh well, you clearly have like this problem, so we're going to just solve this with this medication that you're going to take for 10, 15, 20 years and never get off of, because
because again, right, because the education system is geared more towards women, and so like especially young early education, it's like, oh, why can't you sit and sit quietly and read your book, Timmy, like Sally over here. It's like, well, because he's a boy, and boys are more energetic and rambunctious, and they need they have they because of testosterone, like they constantly have to be doing something, and be active.
And I'm not talking about like real mental illnesses like schizophrenia and like bipolar.
No, of course not. But yeah, it's just like the over diagnosis of ADHD especially for young boys.
Right.
That's kind of, I'm sure that this Nicholas Cruz guy, or the Batman shooter, I'm sure like when they were young they were diagnosed with ADHD and they were given Ritalin or whatever to keep them medicated, but to make them more docile or whatever. But it's like I'm sure that happened, and so like it's like this over diagnosing of ADHD for young boys is, I think, a huge issue.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem that we have. Plus, you have where you're feeling a little like sad, or you're anxious, or you're this. It's like let's prescribe something for you. It's like, no, that's not. That's just a normal life. That's a normal thing in life. Everyone feels anxious. Everyone has stress. Everyone has.
Yeah, and like especially during the awkward stages of your life when you're going through puberty, and for boys, like their voice starts cracking, they develop acne, they're awkward around girls, and so, and especially especially if a young man is rejected, of course, like he's gonna feel sad for like in that moment, but it's not some overarching condition that's gonna be plaguing him for for the rest of his life.
Yeah, but yeah, these these drugs hit, and it's like, and then you have people like who defend it. It was like, oh well, but I know it's kind of like you talk your example of with the moon landing, how it's like, oh well, I know it's my grandfather was a part of this. That's how they get you. It's the same idea with these people who are saying that, oh well, but I know it helped my friend, or it helped my brother, or it helped my whoever get over their problem. It's like, but did it really?
Yeah, did it really? And it's like, maybe like the drugs didn't really have an effect, and like he just kind of your friend, relative, whatever, acquaintance kind of got over it on his own.
Yeah, and kind of like date breakers. It's like what would help? Sunshine and exercise.
Oh, so it's so true though. Yeah. I wish I could remember the title of this book, but it's crazy because, this is a little bit of tangent, but just kind of like documenting the difference between boys and girls. There was a teacher who one of the lessons was to read Treasure Island, or no, Treasure Island? Treasure Island or Lord of the Flies? I think it was Lord of the Flies. But for the girls, the teacher gave the assignment was to do a book report, right? Just straight up write a book report. But for the boys, the teacher asked the boys to draw a map and put down like where each in the book where like each of the landmarks basically.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and so like the girls, they wrote their book reports, and the boys, drew their maps, and the boys got all of the boys. Usually there's like one or two kids who don't do the assignment, but in this case, like it was like all the girls did the book report, all the boys drew the maps, 100% participation, and it's because because this teacher recognized that boys and girls are different, and girls they'll do what they're told, and they can read something and then write something to tell you back, but boys are a little bit more visual, and so and if they are able to what's the word actualize and put what they know on in kind of like a representation, then they're better at that.
Right.
And so it goes to the greater point of like why boys are being constantly overly diagnosed with ADHD.
But yeah, it's crazy to think that this also goes back to like, okay, we're now like this truth is being, I don't know if it's it's being revealed. Why why now, like what else is being hidden? And there's a lot of this this industry is making billions of dollars because they're like I said, they're hand in hand with big pharma and all kind of just they're all together. It's hey, kind of push this drug or push this whatever on people, and it is legal drug pushing essentially. Now, does that mean that like are there ones that are responsible? Sure. But how many people like do you know that are or that talk about like, oh, I've been in therapy and all this stuff, and it's like, and I've been there for such and such times. Like you've been there for like what 6 years and you haven't gotten any better. Like maybe it seems that doesn't seem right. And if you have responsible doctors, it's like my goal is to like not have you here. Maybe there's some checkup, sure, but like my goal is like you're gonna get better and you're gonna be out of my office. That's the point.
Right. It's like
whether
the goal of a doctor should be to see the patient as little as possible.
Exactly. But like for whatever reason in this industry, there's a lot of people, it's like they are always there spending their money, wasting their money on these drugs that aren't helping them, that they feel like they're helping them and I can't function without them, but they don't know why.
Right.
Because they've been sold the bill of goods. It's actually not true. And it is essentially a placebo because they're told that it's going to make them feel better. But in actuality, it's doing a lot of harm to their mind, their body, whatever. And we're seeing that actualized in these mass shooters.
Yep.
I mean that's the big example, but like it's just funny that we have these reports coming out now. It's like, oh yeah, actually this stuff doesn't work. we actually don't know what's going on in the mind, and the whole brain chemistry thing is actually a falsehood. And I'll be the first one to say, like, I thought that was true. I bought into that. Like, it's like, yeah, there's some people like their brain's just fucked up, which is still true. There's still people with actual psychiatric problems, like their brain is broken. But the idea, like, oh, it's maybe like, they have to take this medication because there's something wrong with like how their brain is functioning, and this medication helps them to alleviate that. In the cases of like schizophrenics and super hardcore bipolar people, that is true, because they would not be able to function in society without that medication. However, the people, it's like, oh, I'm really anxious and like I can't function without like this medication. Like, it makes things just so much better. It's like, but does it? Does it really?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like for the anxiety kind of stuff, it's just like, oh, I have anxiety, so oh yeah, here's some Percocet. It's just like,
guess what? Everyone in fucking human history has anxiety.
Yeah,
has moments of depression, has moments of stress. That is normal. Has moments of like where like you have people who are antsy, like they're not able to really sit still because they're active, and you're forcing them to like not be active, and it drives them nuts. I mean, there's things that like I am forced to do where I'm like, I don't want to do it. But because of responsibilities, I'm forced to do those things. I would rather not do them. And vice versa. There's things that like I do that I enjoy that other people would be like, fuck that. I don't want to do any of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's just I just find it fascinating, like that someone as crazy as someone like Tom Cruise is with all his Scientology gobbledygook. This is the one thing that those people seem to have right, that this stuff is bad for you. The psychiatric industry is not a good thing. A lot of their theories are false, whether through malice or just ignorance. It has not really helped anybody, and that just giving these random drugs to people is not a good thing.
No.
And I am in agreement with him on this. It's like, hey, I'm in agreement in one thing. I'm in agreement with Scientologists.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's just like earlier, when we were, talking about how we, in this one thing we agreed with the Taliban.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we're aligning ourselves with our enemies. It's like, wow, I don't know. Maybe they're maybe they're not all bad.
Yeah, it reminds me of this is a deep cut, but in the movie what is it? Rocketeer. There's a scene where the gangsters and the feds team up, and it's so funny because the villain of the story, he's like this Hollywood actor, and he turns out to be a Nazi sympathizer, but the gangsters they skirt the law, but they're still Americans, and so and so like when the big battle comes to a head, you had the feds and you had the mobsters fighting against like the Nazis, and just like there's a scene where like they're like both of them have like Tommy guns, and like they're killing Nazis, and like the gangster looks over to the fed, and the fed looks over to the gangster. It's like, okay, I guess we're allies right now, and then they kill more Nazis.
Oh, dude, I forgot about that. Yeah. God, that movie forever. But yeah, it's exactly right. In this moment, we are. It's like I guess we're together on this one.
Yeah.
We have now compared ourselves to not only the Taliban but Tom Cruise and Scientology.
This is the weirdest timeline ever.
I never would have expected that.
Neither would I. But it strange things are happening all the time.
All right.
Anything else to add? Or?
No, I don't have anything else to add. I felt like the story was super interesting. Deserved some merit to talk about.
It was interesting. So. Yeah, imagine they're like, although I do agree to your point that they're covering for something else. Maybe it's and I'm thinking that it has something to do with the LGBT stuff. Because the mind, because before, what was it? How in the DSM-5 that they have transgenderism put down as a mental disease.
Yeah.
And so maybe if they're if by them admitting that we don't really know what's going on in the minds, they can then kind of make the arguments
rewrite all that stuff.
Yeah, rewrite all that stuff. It's we don't even know if transgenderism is a mental disorder.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what that is about.
It's possible, but I'm sure we'll find out at some point.
Right. Yeah, because if they're admitting that, we don't really know what's going on in the minds, so we can't really say that transgenderism is a thing of the mind. It could be just physiological, propensity. Kind of how they try to make being gay like being black, but by the spell of I was born this way.
God, that's I don't want to get into that now.
I know. But yeah, that's just my take of what they're trying to cover for by making the small
it's very possible. It's very possible that this is just another. It's a smokescreen for something else.
They're running cover for something else. All right. Okay. Well then, that was all of our topics that we had scheduled. So that will bring us to the movie review, and I know that's Rob's favorite part of this.
I've been looking forward to this for 2 weeks now.
For 2 weeks now, that's right, 2 weeks. All right. To remind you guys, tonight the movie review is Nosferatu from 1922. I'll hit y'all with the synopsis and we can get going. Thomas Hutter, working for an estate agency, is sent to Transylvania by his boss to visit a new client named Count Orlok, who plans to buy a property. After entrusting his wife Ellen to his good pal, he embarks on his journey. During his journey amid the mountain regions, he stops at an inn for dinner. The locals discourage Hutter from traveling to the Count's castle, but Hutter proceeds his journey by taking a coach. Due to nightfall, the coachman declines to take him any further than the bridge. Hutter continues his journey alone, and after crossing the bridge, a mysterious coach appears, and a mysterious coachman gestures Hutter to climb aboard. After leaving Hutter outside the Count's castle, the coach goes away. Hutter is welcomed to the castle by Count Orlok.
So, have you seen this movie before, Andy? Or was this your first viewing?
This would be my first viewing, but of course, kind of
you knew of it.
Cinematic, I knew of it. Cinematic archaeology. We've seen the clips of the shadowy figure and after he's drunk in the the shot of where you see the vampire slowly raises his head after he's bitten the neck of one of his victims.
Right.
So I'm aware of this movie, but but I haven't seen this movie.
But this is your first time actually sitting down,
watching it through.
From
yes.
start to finish. What did you think of it? Like, like, did you like it? Did you hate it? Was it kind of just like for you?
This was, this is a very interesting movie. Although, even though I haven't seen Nosferatu, because I've seen all of like the different iterations of like the Bram Stoker Dracula movies, it was very familiar. But again, it's because I think Bram Stoker is even credited as a writer for Nosferatu.
Well, yeah, this was a very loose adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel. This was the first movie to do so of a take on Bram Stoker's novel. But however, they changed it for a variety of reasons. Because this is a German production, so that obviously they wanted to have more of a German centric look at it.
Right.
And they also, because they were like, well, if we change the names and the locations and all this stuff like that, we'll probably be able to get away with it. The laws were a little bit more loose back then.
Right.
However, when it was debuted in 22 at the Zoological Garden in I think it was Berlin, or one of those German towns, and it was a big hit. People loved it. It was a whole deal. And Bram Stoker's wife, because I think Bram Stoker was dead by this point. Florence Stoker was fucking furious because they were like, you stole this story, and so she sued the production. And one of the producers, what was his name? Hold on one second, let me pull his name up here real quick. So the producer, Albin Grau, his bright idea was that, I didn't steal the story. We didn't steal the story. This is actually like a firsthand account. Like, I learned about this stuff during, the First World War. This is a story I heard or that I experienced during the First World War. It's like, no, you didn't. And the court, like, it's like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, you probably would have gotten away with, like, okay, we owe the Stoker estate like some money for, like, for using their story. Right. And we also have to remember too that Bram Stoker's Dracula was not a very popular book. It did not sell well. Most people had forgotten about it. I mean, outside of his wife, who knew of it. Most people had forgotten it, and it's not his most famous book. And at his death, he wasn't even remembered as an author. He was more known as a theater director or a theater. Like, he was dealt with a lot of theater production, and so that was what he was most known for. But this case ended up I think this movie and this case really brought this novel back into the fray. Like, oh, let's check out this novel.
Right, yeah, brought it back to the public conscience.
So, but because of just the bombastic ridiculousness of the F.W. Murnau and Alvin Brau and all these guys, the court they instead of like giving them a financial settlement to the Stoker estate, it was ordered that every copy of this film was to be destroyed. And geez. I think, see, that's where I'm like, okay, no. And I don't know if you watched the last drive-in version. Well, they used the best version of the film that's out there nowadays. But Joe Bob Briggs talks about this film, and I agree with him. It's like, fuck Florence Stoker. Like, her crusade, her entire life crusade from this point on was to destroy this movie. And they did destroy some copies, but I think through a lot, we talk about like a lot of silent films are lost. Like 90% of them are just gone.
Right.
We'll never get them back. But I think through sheer what's the word I'm looking for? Just
sheer luck,
rebellion. Through sheer rebellion, this is why we have this movie still, because people are like, fuck this woman, fuck her her crusade against this movie. We are going to keep this, and it got distributed to a bunch of different places. I don't know if it still is. I think I really do think it is still on public domain. But yeah, it's this movie ended up becoming public domain. There's a lot of copies of this movie that are horrible. They're almost unwatchable just because.
Yeah, the degradation.
Yeah. But thankfully, similar to like what we talked about with like Metropolis and the Housemaid, we have people that have worked to restore the film to its 1922 glory, and I think a lot of the new like anniversary editions that are out there have really restored this film to a good quality, and it's just like I said, it's so fascinating how this film is still available for us to watch, and this is I think the first like full length serious like horror film. It is one of those films that you just have to watch. It's definitely the first iteration of Bram Stoker's novel. It's definitely a very loose adaptation. I don't know if you watched it, but I sent you a video kind of talking about how which of the Dracula films really is best incorporates the story from Bram Stoker. And in reality, none of them do it fully. There is still yet to be a page by page adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel, which I think would be great. I would love to see that. There's a few that kind of come close, but they're so different in so many other ways. Like Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. But this is really the first one to do it. And
wait, is that the one with Keanu Reeves?
Yeah. Oh okay. God. Honestly, that's his worst role. He is so. Why he was? I mean, obviously he was popular, but with
yeah,
because that came out in '93, I think 92 or
92, 93, yeah.
So we're coming off of
Driver,
Speed.
How much further to the castle?
Yeah, we're coming off Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Speed. I think at this point.
I think Speed was 94.
Was it? Oh, so it was after it was after Dracula then.
Yeah.
Oh God. So this is after Bill and Ted's then.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I Keanu Reeves has developed into a great actor.
Yeah, 94,
but like,
94.
Yeah, he is terrible in Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. He's awful. That is his worst role. But yeah, so and when you dig into like kind of the story of F.W. Murnau and who actually did a lot in Hollywood and like a lot of film.
Oh, I totally forgot Monica Bellucci was in the 92 version.
Yeah, she's in it too. It is, a lot of people tend to shit on that movie, but it's actually really good. I recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this. It was so long ago that I watched it, but yeah, people shit on it, but it's like I still enjoyed it. I mean, I love like Anthony Hopkins. That guy playing him playing Van Helsing. Come on,
perfect. I just so that's kind of like a little bit like the history of the movie and like the trouble it went through. One thing there's just something about silent horror films that I really love. We did Phantom of the Opera like a number of years ago, which is one of my favorites. Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is another one that I really like. But what did you think of like the movie itself? Like, what about it did you like?
I enjoy the performances. I really, even though they were silent, as previously stated, there was just an earnestness to the performances by the actors.
I would say like that Max Schreck was doing, kind of doing the stuff that like Lon Chaney was doing with the makeup effects. And we talked about Daybreakers earlier in the month. I think Daybreakers definitely took maybe some ideas off of Nosferatu, because as the movie goes along, Count Orlok becomes more and more grotesque. With like, because he starts off like he looks weird, but like he's still kind of like normal looking.
Right.
But
yeah, the features aren't as pointy.
Yeah, he becomes more and more creature-like. His hands become more and more like gnarled and like gross. And it's like he's turning into that like weird creature that we see, like, the vampires that aren't getting the blood. They're turning into that weird creature. And so I'm wondering if Daybreakers, I'm sure they took a lot off of like all these, Dracula films. But yeah, I love Max Schreck as Count Orlok. I actually really want to watch the spoof of Nosferatu. Was it Shadow of the Vampire from 2000 with Willem Dafoe? I can't find that anywhere. It's streaming anywhere at least.
Yeah, but if Willem Dafoe, if you were to remake Nosferatu, I would totally cast Willem Dafoe in the title role.
Apparently, they are making that was a spoof of Nosferatu that they made in 2000. We had the Werner Herzog remake in '79, which is also a really good film. I highly recommend it. They apparently are remaking Nosferatu I think it was supposed to come out later this year, and it got pushed for I think next year. But they're having trouble. They were gonna have Harry Styles play Nosferatu, and like, no. And I think they ended up recasting that, which is, thank fucking God. They have what's her face? Anya Taylor-Joy is going to be playing in it, which I think is perfect casting. She'd be great in it as Ellen. As Ellen. Yeah, that's just perfect. She's I love her acting. She'd be great in it. But I'm wondering who they're going to get to play Nosferatu. Like, hell, honestly, I'd be like, if they got Willem Dafoe, he'd be perfect in that. He'd be great.
Absolutely. That's why I name dropped him.
Yeah. He's already done it. Just have him. Although in that film, he was playing Max Schreck, and they were kind of like where it's like they were filming a real kind of like I would liken that film to like Tropic Thunder, where they're filming a film that's real, in that sense.
A film about making a film.
Exactly. That's what Shadow of the Vampire is supposed to be like, which I really want to watch it. I might have to just buy the DVD of that and see, because it's not streaming anywhere.
Right.
But I would be, if they come out with a new version of Nosferatu, I would be very curious to see it. Just to see what they do with it. Do they make it more? Are they going to just copy, Nosferatu, or kind of make their own spin on it a little bit, but kind of do the Nosferatu movie?
Right, but then also will they adapt it and make it a talkie?
Well, the '79 remake by Werner Herzog is a talkie. It is a sound film. But it's the same film, but it's not the same film at the same time. There are differences. Werner Herzog did his own take on it, and it's equally a great film. It's really good. And So I'm kind of curious, are they going to go kind of stick with the same vein as like the Nosferatu movies, or are they going to, try to do more of a Bram Stoker, kind of go more like what Bram Stoker was doing with the book?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I'd be very curious to see how they do it, and I'd watch it in theaters. That is a movie that I think is worthy of a remake. So we'll see. And if Joy's in it, I'm probably gonna watch it just because I think she's spectacular as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I noticed, like Hutter is really dumb. He is he now in the remake he seems much more competent,
Mm-hmm.
but in this version, the 22 version, he seems like just a dumb oaf. And the person that is the capable, smart person in the film is
Mm-hmm.
Ellen.
Yeah.
She's the only one that seems to realize the danger,
Mm-hmm.
and she's also willing to make the sacrifice that's necessary to like save the town and like save everybody. So
Yeah,
don't what I'm saying is that, like, for the people that are saying like, oh, there's never been, now like all
strong
the
female characters. Yeah.
movies, like this is a movie that's like, this has like a strong female character, like, that everyone's like clamoring for. It's like, well, guess what? It happened back in 1922.
Yeah.
This film has a strong female character that is really the hero of the film.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I mean, bless his heart, but yeah, I mean, him like him trying to make his way back to her. I thought that was a good decision.
Oh wait, does Hutter come around and like does he make like good decisions afterwards? Sure.
Right.
But like his initial journey is like, God, he is such a dope.
Right. Yeah. Like not taking like the advice of like the locals and just like, oh, I got this.
I don't need this
He
empire.
right. He's the Leroy Jenkins of.
Yeah, there's not really in this movie. There's not really like a Van Helsing. There's not. There's
Well, yeah, was that professor guy? But like he's not.
So like I said, the character switches, like the character name switches. It's not Van Helsing. It's this like professor, but he's not really like involved. Like, to be honest, like I'm kind of wondering. I was like, why is this guy in the movie?
Yeah, I was wondering that myself. He was like, yeah, because he's clearly the Van Helsing character, but he has nothing to do.
Right, like, because he is kind of giving us some like lore of like what a vampire does, and I'm kind of curious as to like why, like, when the plague was happening, like kind of that plague was hitting the town, which was Count Orlok that was hitting the town, that he wasn't like more involved in like helping like the town figure out what's going on. I thought that was I kind of like I said it. This is the first time that anyone's really like attempting to film this story, so I give it a pass there. But yeah, I feel like that's a missed opportunity there. The time on the ship, of like with Count Orlok and his his coffins with like the dirt and the rats. That is a really horrifying scene. Like, just one by one, these sailors are just getting killed, and it's like, after a while, I was like, I'm not fucking going down there. Like,
yeah, right.
It's like, but like just the way I'm almost curious of like how they got that scene, like where Count Orlok just come, like it just like it just that scene is so scary, where he just like uprights himself, like it's not like it's just this
Well, I mean, they probably reversed the shot.
Oh, you might be right. Like where they like lowered him down. That makes sense. That is a possibility. I didn't think about that. Yeah, because they could do that back then. But yeah, I was like, but still, it's really scary. You know, it's like he just come like, and it's like that guy knows like I'm fucked. Like I'm gonna die. And after like because the last guy to go down there is like, if I'm not back in 10 minutes, you know what to do.
Yeah.
And the guy doesn't come back, and you see that captain just tie himself to like the freaking
the wheel,
the stern, and it's like he's the last one that dies, and you just see that the death ship has a new captain. Oh
yeah,
it's like that's such a great title card too.
Yeah.
The other thing too that what was interesting about this, because F.W. Murnau, he hated title cards. He thought it's like, if I can't tell the story without the title cards, I've done a terrible job. He does one of his later silent films, I think it's called The Last Laugh, is actually a silent film that has no title cards whatsoever. I'm actually really curious to check that out.
Oh, really?
But what he does is kind of interesting, because you have a lot of first-person dialogue going on. It's not just but then you also have like there are several different types of title cards. There's the conversational title cards that are first person. Then you have like the green ones, which are like the narrator of the story telling what's happening.
Right.
So, like this is a story that happened in the past. I'm just retelling it.
Yeah.
At the end of when Count Orlok takes over the ship, the death ship has a new captain.
Right, that was a narration.
But then there's also like the ones with the letters that people were writing to each other, like Hutter talking, writing that letter to Ellen. It's like, oh, I have 2 mosquito bites on my neck.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that, and so I think that for 1922, that's pretty unique that they're doing something different with it, and I found that to be really fun with the movie as well. And with this film, with all the different iterations, the public domain ones, there's like a 100th anniversary one, which does something even like different. Like the whole thing is just completely different. I actually don't like that version. There's also one where you can actually watch the whole movie with the German title cards instead of the English ones, which I'd be really curious to watch. Just to see if they do something a little bit different there too. But yeah, this is just such a cool film, and the woman saves the day. This is the first time we see one of the tropes in vampire movies, sunlight. Sunlight kills the vampire. Although that doesn't happen in the book, it just weakens Count Dracula.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, when I first watched the '92 Bram Stoker movie,
he walks around during the day.
Yeah, exactly. Which I was totally confused, because growing up with kind of the mythology of vampires and how like sunlight can kill them, it's just like, how is this guy able to do it?
Well, and because I think like we the actual weaknesses and like the stuff that goes on with Dracula and vampires, it's changed so much. Like it's gone through so many different things, and like because then you also have like the idea of like transforming. Vampires transform into bat. Dracula turns into bats, or there's the werewolves that
mist.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that it's a story that has developed over time.
Yeah, it evolved.
But no one has actually gone back and told the actual Bram Stoker story. They've all had their different twist on it, and obviously every vampire movie, or hell, even like the werewolf movies, werewolves come, I think, from Bram Stoker's Dracula. where there was no, I don't think there's a full on like gothic horror werewolf story that was written.
No.
I think werewolves come from Dracula. And so like all these stories have kind of developed over time, kind of like Robin Hood or the Knights of the Round Table, with King Arthur. That story was a story that developed over time, and obviously with Bram Stoker, it has come through through film, like where the story has developed through different filmmakers having their own take on it, and so that's where, oh, it's garlic and silver or sunlight or this or that, and like there's all these
Right.
different
Yeah, because
weaknesses that.
I remember I took an anthropology class, and just after when I was in community college, just after high school, and the teacher actually did talk about like vampire lore and things like that, and the teacher said that he actually went out to like Romania and things like that, and he learned some stuff like the whole like stake through the heart, that wasn't necessarily supposed to kill them, but it was supposed to, like, if someone was suspected of being a vampire, like before they were buried, they were staked just in the chest to keep them pinned into the coffin.
Yeah. And I think that also comes back, the idea of the stake to the heart, that, because the story itself comes from it's a very, very loose story based off of Vlad the Impaler.
Right.
He is the original Count Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
And, Hungarian.
Hungarian. Yeah, take pride in that.
There are a few of the Dracula movies that pay tribute to the idea of, the House of Dracula, and Francis Ford Coppola does it. Dracula Untold, I think, which is not a bad film. It really is not. I was so hesitant to watch that, but I am so glad that I did watch it, because it's a good movie. They were kind of like, there was supposed to be sequels. I know there was. It was that was also gonna be part of the dark universe that Universal was trying to do. But the Dracula Untold was a story of like what happened to Vlad, kind of like this Vlad the Impaler type of guy who ended up just massacring all these Turks, and it was a great movie. But yeah, like the story of Dracula is very loosely based off of Vlad the Impaler, and he drank blood and all this stuff, and it's like, well, no, that didn't happen either. But yeah, it's really, I would love to go through like all like these vampire movies. I haven't read Bram Stoker's Dracula in probably 30 years almost. I read this book really young. I was like 10 when I read the book. So it's been a long time. Actually, I don't think I don't know if I think I lent out my copy of Dracula and I never got it back. So I might have to rebuy.
It's you're never supposed to lend out books. You're supposed to gift books.
Yeah, I kind of wish I still had it. So I'm gonna have to buy Dracula again at some point, because I want to reread it, just to refresh myself on the actual story.
Right.
But yeah, I just, like I said, I really like the movie. I think it is a fun, well, fun, maybe fun's not the best way to describe it, but it is a great take on an adaptation for Dracula. It has lived through time. Like, I mean, obviously, all the actors, all the directors, everyone involved in the film is dead. Yet it remains, and through it shouldn't remain. It should have been destroyed back, like when that court case.
Right. If what's her face, Mrs. Stoker had her. Yeah. If she had her way, this movie wouldn't have existed.
Yeah, and I think that's why it still exists today, is through just sheer rebellion. It's like, well, fuck you, Florence. We're gonna make sure that this film survives, and that's what happened. And where like I've read about like some of these like silent films that's like, man, why didn't this sounds cool? It sucks that it's not around anymore. But it's like movies like this, and even like was it Birth of a Nation? Like, as hated as that movie is, it's still around. Why do you think? Why is that? I think it's through sheer like someone hate. It's like through rebellion. That's like, oh, everyone doesn't want this film, or like, I don't know when that film started to get hate. Like, I don't know if it was right away or if it was like through like the course of history, like with Birth of a Nation. But for whatever reason, it survived. And same thing with this film and people did love this film. It was very successful, like its opening night, and it has survived through time, and it deserves all the accolades. It's so good. It's are there better Dracula films? Yeah, possibly. I actually think that the remake is better, like overall as like a movie. I think it's a better told story. And do I like the Bela Lugosi version a little bit better? Sure. I mean, I that's a movie I grew up on, but I really love this film a lot, and I'm so glad we got to talk about it.
Indeed, especially in happened to be the 100th anniversary, so.
Yeah, and like I said, it's kind of the basic story. You have like Hutter, who is supposed to be well, in like the Lugosi version, it's Renfield that's going to sell Count Dracula. In this case, it's Count Orlok. Like this property in England. This is also one of the first films to actually film not just on a set but on location. They trekked over to like Slovakia or like Czechoslovakia or something like that to film at like an actual castle, and like a lot of all the scenes at Orlok's castle were in that castle. And I think they did the same thing for the Nosferatu remake as well. I think they went back to the same place.
Nice.
And it's still standing. You can go to that location today and tour it.
Yeah, that's
so.
That's really special. It's because we think of this, we see this movie as being like 100 years old, and like it's sometimes the movie is the only link to the past. I mean, like with the Phantom of the Opera, like we can never go visit like the soundstage or whatever where they built the set for that movie because
because it was super important that they destroy it so they could have Harry Potter land.
Exactly. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice to find out that the castle and the filming location still exists.
Yeah, I forgot the name of the castle. But if you guys watch on Shudder like the last drive-in episode of Nosferatu, they tell you the name of the castle and everything. It's like, and it still stands. You can go there today and like check it out. I think Cinemasker also talks about like Nosferatu. They did a video for its 100th anniversary as well. Just so, yeah, it's just kind of cool that F.W. Murnau, he was an innovator. It's like, well, he liked the idea of having moving camera equipment, which was like not heard of in that time. He hated filming on sets, so he would go on location, even though it cost more. And it definitely showed. And the other thing, one last thing before we kind of end this, is the other thing that he did is we've talked about like silent film before, and like how obviously like a lot of those cameras were hand cranked, and they would have like a tachometer, and it's like because you're having to crank it at a certain revolutions per minute, and a lot of those old silent films, like they were cranked at a certain way, but the way that they were projected was at another speed, and that's why like you have like, it's like everyone's like at like super fast speed all the time.
Things are sped up, yeah.
Which we learned about that when we did our They Shall Not Grow Old. Peter Jackson talked about that problem when he was restoring the footage, the World War I footage.
Right. Yeah.
So the problem was but that was actually happening even back in the 20s because they had the equipment to play it at the right speed, but a lot of those film projectors at the movie theaters were just too fucking lazy to get the right equipment. Yeah, so it's we have this. We're not gonna get this.
Yeah, clearly they didn't see it as an investment.
So, but F.W. Murnau, he was like, no, we're gonna make sure we are shooting it at this speed. We're gonna make sure that when we're showing this film, we're gonna show it at the right speed. And there are certain shots in the movie that are sped up, but that's not on purpose.
Right.
But because the rest of it, when you watch it, it's like, wow, they're actually moving at the right speed. It doesn't feel like they're all super fast, out of nowhere for no reason. There's only a couple scenes that are sped up, like when Count Orlok is putting the coffins full of the Transylvanian dirt down. That is sped up, but that is purposely done that way.
Right. Yeah, to give him a sense of supernatural strength and speed.
Yeah. So that is, I was like, when I was watching, it's like, it felt so different from a lot of other silent film that we've watched.
Absolutely.
There's
nothing else to add. No, I got nothing else to add.
No, yeah, I'm ready to give the ratings.
All right. Why don't you start us off?
To me, this is just one of those great classics. This is one of the first horror films I ever saw. And I told you before we started today that I like this better than Midsommar, and I gave Midsommar a 4.5. I can't give this anything but a 5. And with that type of statement, it really is a 5-star movie for me. It's the first full length horror film that I know of. If there's another one that's not a 10-minute short or whatever, let me know. I would love to see it. And I just love this film just for the story behind it, the reason it still exists, and I think the story itself is also just really great. And it's the first adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is a book I love. So yeah, it's 5 stars for me.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. This is one of those times where we're gonna come in slightly differently. But I'm just gonna come under you, and I'm just gonna give it a 4. Again, I thought, I really did enjoy this movie, but I just can't see myself giving this a perfect 5. Just nothing against it, because I mean, yes, it was it's literally from a different century, but and again, that's not necessarily a knock, but yeah, I just for some reason I just can't give this a perfect one, but I still really enjoyed it, so I'm gonna give it a 4.
All right. Yeah, I'm very happy that you liked it, Andy. I honestly I felt bad last week because I really thought that you were gonna like that movie, and you did.
Yeah, and I went into Midsommar very open-minded, because again, I heard some not so great things about it, and I heard some okay things about it, and then you gave your seal of approval, so I was like, okay, maybe it's not all that bad, and I went in and I was like, I don't like this movie. But this one was definitely. Okay. But yeah, Nosferatu, a classic.
It's kind of back to basics, and this is really kind of the start of horror film. Is this
absolutely,
movie?
Absolutely, yeah. That whole, that whole they get like you said, that line, from the narrator title card was this has now become a ship of death. It's like there's never been more of a chilling line in a movie.
Oh, it's like, oh shit.
You know, and it's like, yeah, they didn't show you, like, they didn't show, like, you know, the vampire, like, ripping out, like, the captain's neck or whatever, but it's like, just that
You knew what
title.
happened.
You didn't need,
Yeah.
you didn't, your mind filled in what happened. It's like, and just that title card, it's like, you know, this is now a ship of death. It's like, oh, jeez.
And I think what's also really cool about it is like the mystery behind it, because like I said, this is almost like a film from another world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
and
yeah, it's again,
you
yeah, totally different context. Literally 100 years ago.
we don't know hardly anything about like the actors involved. Like we don't know much about Max Schreck, who played Count Orlok. We don't know about like the characters that were in the movie. We kind of know a little bit about the director and like some of the production company. We know a little bit about them. We know about the court case with Florence Stoker and the Stoker estate, but yeah, it's like it's almost like this whole like mystery that's we just don't know hardly anything about these people. Like it's not as well documented as like with like Seven Samurai or like, you know, these more like modern films where like there's literally like essays and video discussions and like everyone's talking about it, and we have interviews with like the people that were involved, but not this. We don't have any of that shit with this film. And I think that's kind of like the fun of it. It's such a mystery.
Absolutely. All right, folks, there you have it. That's our review of Nosferatu. Robert gives it a 5. I give it a 4. It's one of those movies you have to watch. You know, it's
Oh yeah.
If you consider yourself a cinephile, if you consider yourself a lover of horror movies, if you are just a lover of the cinematic arts, you should watch this movie.
Absolutely.
So yes, Jerks recommended. Yeah, that'll bring us to the end of our stream. I hope we had a good time. I know I had a good time. I know Rob.
Yeah, it's nice not talking to a blank screen on a Tuesday.
Yeah, or someone who gets you. Not like your wife.
I did get her to watch some movies that I didn't expect her to watch. This is not one of them. She was
no.
Not only is it silent,
like black and white, no sound.
I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah, it's like I'm out. Hard pass. But don't forget to check out the library of other content that we have. The Circle of Jerry's main podcast, episodes of Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Rob's gaming show, Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media accounts: Twitter and Letterboxd at PodcastCOJ, and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with all that said, we thank you for joining us tonight. Come back next week, and we'll do it all over again. Oh, with a new theme.
Schlocktober.
Yeah, because Robert is a bastard.
Although next week, because it is our birthday,
it is our actual birthday.
Yeah, it is Schlocktober is going to be delayed by a week because we're going to do something more fun for both of us, which you guys will find out about next week.
All right. Come back next week and we'll do it all over again. Have a good night.